This is the holy gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to St. Mark.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what to say, for they were terrified. And then a cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud there came a voice. "This is my Son, the beloved. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, they saw no one with them anymore, but only Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, he ordered them to tell no one about what they had seen, until after the Son of Man had risen from the dead. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Please be seated. In our Old Testament reading today, we hear about the story of Elijah and Elisha and Elijah's final days. And there's a great line about they saw the chariots of fire. And probably most of us here remember the movie Chariots of Fire. It came out about 1982 or so. Ben Kingsley played. No, that was not. It came out about 1982. It was about Olympic runners. Anyway, it's a great, great movie. And I was in high school when that movie came out, and our track team went to see it together. We all went down to the mall to watch the movie together. And I was thinking about this week because one of the guys I was on the track team with, his name was David, and David died a year or 2 ago. And I don't know why, but his death really hit me in some sort of way. And I knew David. I don't even remember when I met him. Probably in elementary school. He was a great runner. He was a long distance runner. He was tall and thin, and he had sort of tight curly hair, so it looked like he had an afro. He was like a super white dude, but he had this big afro, and he was just like always easygoing, good-natured, always had a kind word. And the thing that really stuck out for me from David is that his parents were deaf. And so he was the first person I ever knew who knew American Sign Language. I don't think I'd even heard of American Sign Language until I met him one day, like a Parents' Day. His parents were there, and David was translating for them, and I was kind of just blown away. It's always stuff. Anyway, like me, he joined the Navy after school, and like me, he never went back home. He stayed in California. That probably would have been a good choice. But I stayed here in New York, and to be honest with you, I haven't spoken to David in like 40 years almost, like since we left school. We were like friends on Facebook, and I saw what he was doing. And, he was kind of starting a new life. He had retired from his job. A little jealous there. But and then he just had a heart attack and died, and it really hit me. I don't know if it was the circumstance, or because it felt like he was doing something new and it was kind of tragically cut short, or it's just because it's someone you knew as a child and it feels like they should still be here. But it impacted me in some sort of way. And I've been thinking about grief, because we all experience grief in our own ways. Right? Sometimes we are angry at the loss of someone. Sometimes we are just numb. Sometimes we become helpless and unable to do anything. Sometimes we can just kind of carry on and treasure their memories. We all experience grief in different ways, and at different times we individually experience grief in different ways. And sometimes it comes back to us like waves, like tides, and coming in and going back out. And my experience of grief, and yours may be different, of course, is that the weight of the loss never really changes. The emptiness that has been created by the loss of someone that was important to us in some I think that grief is really at the heart of a lot of what's been going on in our civic life, right? Our nation. We went through a period of COVID. We might remember that here. It had some minor impacts here at the church. Of course, we didn't have church for like a year in person or anything. And we added the Zoom, and we still have people joining us that way. And it caused some big shifts. And I've been thinking about COVID recently because we're having Ash Wednesday, of course, next week. And I don't know if you remember, but I think it was 2021 Ash Wednesday. We did a service out in the parking lot. We had a parking lot service. And I stood out there in a tent, and it was like 20 degrees. And the communion cup was really, really, really cold. It was made out of metal. And you all sat in your nice warm cars. And we did this, right? I did it twice. I did one, I think, at noon, one in the evening, and at nighttime. And it was the first time we'd had communion since the beginning of COVID, for almost a year. Right? It started in March when we closed down church. So whatever day it was, in 2021, we all were gathered here. And then you would drive up in a circle in front, and I would give you the ashes, and then you drive a little bit further up. And I think it was Jane and Sharon who gave communion. And we've never had more people for Ash Wednesday. I looked back in the books, like, they never had people like that for Ash Wednesday, even when there were 300 people here. Because it was so important to come together as a community and have communion together for the first time. I think we really missed it. It was something important in our lives and missing. We had this opportunity, even in that really weird way, to do it. And what really stood out for me is that as you drove by, you rolled down your windows, and it was so nice to actually see you in person. I had seen so many of you in so long, and to actually reach out and put the ashes, and I was always struck by the warmth of your foreheads. And it was sort of, I don't know, I can't even really, I still don't have real words to describe it, but it was a very powerful emotion to have that connection, like a real connection after so long being isolated. I'll never forget that Ash Wednesday. But this period of COVID was a time when over 1 million Americans died that wouldn't otherwise die because of COVID. And I can't imagine there's anybody in the United States who doesn't know someone who died from COVID. I know, I think we were fortunate. I don't think there was any members of our church who died, but I know many of us had family members who did. My own stepfather was one. So many people have been lost, and we've not really marked it collectively. We've not grieved over the loss of 1 million people. And I think that that's causing disruption, because in the same way that our loss of the ability to gather together was a kind of grief that we collectively experienced as we had the ability to come and gather as church taken away from us, and how uniting it was for us to come together on that Ash Wednesday and to share the sacrament as a community, to have real connection between us. It brought us together. But the grief of COVID has torn us apart, not us as a group, but as a nation. We see this in families all the time, that when a member of the family dies, sometimes it brings everybody together. And oftentimes it just leads to acrimony, because they were the one person who kind of lived on things, and it all blows up. And it feels to me like that's what's happened in COVID. That this grief that we've all carried collectively has had no outlet, no collected emotional experience, no way to mark it, to mourn it, to celebrate the lives that were lost. We've done that individually. Although there are people who died, even connected to this church, whose family chose not to have any kind of service. But collectively, we have not. And I think that when we experience grief, in my life anyway, that ultimately it brings me back around to contemplation of the meaning of faith and the promises of God. And I find myself consolation in the idea that our existence is not bound by our birth or our death. We exist somehow beyond that. I don't know exactly what that looks like, exactly how it works. The scriptures are ambiguous at best. But the idea that it does is very clear in the promises that God gives. And if we can hold fast the idea that Jesus is resurrected, and that through his resurrection we also partake of that promise of continued existence, I think we can take our losses and we can remember that in some way the holes created by the deaths of those that we cared for are filled with the love of God. Because God himself has experienced loss and death. I think that's the most important thing about the crucifixion is that Jesus suffered in a way that all of us know all too well, but that perhaps God did not. Through that experience, we are united, us with God, in that experience of grief and loss. But also we are reunited and joined together in the experience of resurrection. That's the great hope that Jesus offers us. That not only do our lives have meaning and purpose in this world, in the same way that Jesus' life had a meaning and purpose in this world, that this world does not hold us back, that our end of existence here is not the end of us, that we can continue with God's majesty and power into eternity. And that our lives of faith are all part of God's efforts to save us all, and to offer to all of us the gift of rebirth and renewal, God's new kingdom. And I think that as a community of faith, that if we can hold fast together, if we can hold on to those promises and hopes, and if they can be for us a catalyst for fearless love in the world, then maybe we need to begin to heal the grief that our whole world has been experiencing because of this horrible thing that we've all gone through. That if we can be the lights of love, then we too can be the people of reconciliation. That we can be a beacon of hope to a hurting world.